Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with this week's episode of the Market Monday. We are going to talk for a brief moment about Ultimate Masters, and then I'm going to move on to more of the economic indicators surrounding Magic the Gathering, see what sort of state we're in, and see if there's any logical investments or what we should be doing in this sort of environment. So first of all, it's making me lead to believe that we are in a market that is a little bit overburdened. A little bit is an understatement. We're very overburdened with the amount of just product that's out there, and it's led to a stagnation overall in the big demographics of Magic, I guess what you call it, the Commander, the Legacy, the Modern, the Standard. Those are all substantially down since Guilds of Ravnica, and they've really all been down since about M19. And I think that the factoring in is that the whales are not being able to support the growth that we once saw with Magic the Gathering. We need a lot of new blood. We need some more, like last year we had both Modern and Pauper and Commander really taking off. It seemed like that people were still trying to invest in the formats. Players were still like ravishly buying cards for their Modern, Pauper, Commander, and it led to a very, very healthy 2018. Definitely a bull market for the singles. One of the best years we've had was 2018 for growth overall, and it was kind of like we had a very stale standard. That might have had a lot to do with why Modern, Commander, and Pauper were so hot in 2018. And then we had at the start of Guilds of Ravnica a very, very good standard, and of course we saw kind of the market move from those formats into standard. So that's kind of what I want to focus on in this Market Monday, is that I guess what's the phrase? You can't eat your cake and have it too, or have your cake and eat it too, whatever it is. Where it's saying that when the focus is going to be on something, it's definitely going to take away the focus from something else. And I think that is more to do with what we've been. Instead of an overall just strong Magic the Gathering market, we've had places where Magic has been strong. And when Standard is strong, well, maybe the other things can't be strong. And in this case, I think we have an Ultimate Masters that's incredibly strong. We also have an Arena that's incredibly strong. And both of those keep sucking up most of the equity, or most of the money, the finite money that people have to spend on Magic the Gathering. And we've seen a lot of price fall as a result of that. And I'll try to prove that throughout this video. And then, of course, you have to adjust your buying and selling practices in accordance with that knowledge. So anyway, let's look at Ultimate Masters. A lot of you have been talking about the great recovery. Yes, there have been some recoveries in prices. You'll notice like Liliana and Karn, Caverns, Tarmogoyf, Snapcaster, Noble Hierarch. Those are the big ones that have recovered quite substantially since the lowest price point that these cards started to crash out. So I'm going to give you two reasons why. A, there has been a lot of talk in not only the MTG finance community, but just the big gurus out there talking about how they think this is the low that you'll be able to get in on card singles, and it led to a buying spree. Yes, let me repeat that. It led to a buying spree. We're talking about hundreds of copies of cards that moved from Ultimate Masters because people felt that they're going to miss out on the bottom. Now, I think that there will still be time for this to level off, and these cards will go back down to what we saw at the low. We haven't seen this decline at all come close. And if you look at any of the other master sets in the past, a week was definitely not the low. It's usually about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. If we look at Modern Masters, let's just go over there real quick into the Modern Masters 2017, because this is a very similar set with what I call the All-Stars had a lot of demand. And you can see the price really leveled off. Came out the gates to high sell. It died here, so I had that crash right here at the release as well at 649. Had that little market run up all the way to 706, and then fell back down to 684. So it's kind of in the middle here is where it then falls off, and then had a little bit more falling off around this time, and this is very stable for a long period of time before then around Rivals of Ixalan, which is this isn't an anomaly here. Everything in Magic went up at Rivals of Ixalan. So keep that in mind. That was a January? So we might actually be seeing this year. What's up with the new year? I'm going to have to look at some trends, see if New Year's are really when things start to spend. Is it after Christmas? Because I thought I remembered last year it was like November when we started to see a lot of action in the MTG market. But I could have been, have some mismemory here, and it could have actually been January. So that, you know what, that actually changes a lot of variables here. It could be a very, very, very investable time in Magic. So the thing is, like, every year is such a crapshoot with around Christmas. And Christmas is the past. We're talking like 2014, 2015, even before then. Christmas used to be the best time to buy Magic the Gathering singles. Everyone was buying sealed product. Everyone was trying to sell Magic cards to just afford the fall holiday seasons. And it was one of those things like, oh, I have Magic cards, I can sell them, out of sight, out of mind type thing. And there wasn't a lot of growth whatsoever around the Christmas season. And then we had a few years where there was a ton of growth around the Christmas season, and it seemed that those particular Christmas seasons were big bull markets due to the fact that people are using Magic cards as Christmas presents. So every year you have to determine which one we're in. I'm definitely in the category that people are selling Magic cards just to free up capital for other things in their life at the moment, and people are using more of the sealed product as a presence, and things like the Guilds of Ravnica guild kits, the the Ultimate Masters, and other products. Arena itself has been gobbling up most of that attention, and therefore we've seen these single prices definitely go down and stagnate or dwindle. Actually, it has been going down across the board about 20%, I would say, since Guilds of Ravnica. So anyway, we might be able to see a runaway market for January, which is a good sign for right now for buying. However, talking about Ultimate Masters, since that's the category we're in, we should see a very similar thing happen over the course of, let's see here. So this is the release. At the release, it then fell from 677 to 642, and then over the course of the next few days, which we're seeing right now, it went up another about $30 from its low, and then it dropped back down another $30 or $20 to find kind of its stable price that it was for quite some time. So anyway, maybe if we zoom out more, it'll give a better picture. Yeah, this is definitely what's been going on right now with this market. And it does seem to have this little recovery, and then the prices stabilize off. So what causes this? In my opinion, this is exactly what happens. So the box openers, it goes from the distributor to the first category of people, which is the people that order directly from distributors. So some people are able to pick up at their local game stores or have a deal that they get their product early, their breaking street date, blah, 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 whatever. We'll talk about the ethics of that some other time. But people that have early access to the product before the masses do end up opening usually they're the people that buy in the boxes of, the 10s, the 20s, the 100s, and they crack all these boxes, and then there's a mass race to the bottom is what we like to call it, on TCG Player, eBay, and Amazon, of people trying to sell the goods, trying to get out of it as quickly as possible, make their profit margins, then move on to the next product. They have to always be ahead of the curve for that sort of stuff. And then it gets to the secondary consumer after that, or the third tier after that. It's just the actual players, and I think that's what this set's actually going to affect more. I think we're going to see more on the lines of Iconic Masters and Modern Masters 2017. Now, yes, I like to compare Modern Masters 2017 with Ultimate Masters because they're very similar in the fact that these cards at the top all have extremely high demand. And there's a big difference from taking an $80 card that has very little demand like Rashad and Port versus a card that has very high demand like Liliana the Veil. You can't compare apples and oranges in that case because Liliana is going to recover a lot better than Port is because Port's only played in Legacy. Liliana the Veil is played in a format that has 10 times the amount of players, way more than 10 times the amount of players than Legacy does, and of course is going to recruit very quickly. Same thing with the things like the fetch lands. They're going to recruit very quickly just because they are cross-format all-stars. So I like to compare Modern Masters 2017 more with Ultimate Masters just because there's more of those type of cards in Ultimate Masters than there was in Iconic or in Masters 25. However, Masters 25 and Iconic Masters have a very similar distribution model that they had a lot more printed than Modern Masters 2017, and they are both available at Walmart and Target. I think that's the key variable that a lot of people are missing out on. A lot of people think that the majority of the product is open and out, and that we got to buy it now because you're going to miss the opportunity to be at the low. Everyone's trying to get on those cards. So if we actually look at a card, we'll pull up like Tarmogoyf here. And we can probably see a very similar thing happen. Okay, Tarmogoyf is a bad example. Let's look at Cavern of Souls, because Tarmogoyf, every time it's been reprinted, it's never recovered to its right price. But you can see Caverns actually came out way low and then did really start to recover. So everyone's worried about right here. So it was 37, then went back down to 34. This is the time to buy into it. Right here was the cheapest price. It's going to continue to go up. And if, like, Modern Masters 2017 is the thing you can compare Ultimate Masters to, then right now would be the cheapest time to get into these specific high demand mythics. However, I still think the Ultimate Masters is more like the... Let's go back over to the Ultimate Master, or go back over to Masters 25. Let's go back over, up. I'm all over the place here. Price list into Legacy special sets. So if we look over here at Masters 25 and Iconic Masters, we're going to see a very different thing even with these more high demand cards. Is yes, they hit their low, really stabilized off here because there's been a trickle of products coming in, mainly due to the fact that these have been available at the Walmarts and Targets. So even right now, Ultimate Masters still has a positive EV if you buy the Walmart packs, and so people are still going to think it's the best bang for your buck. They're going to continue to buy these. And we're going to see a more trickle-in effect rather than in the Modern Masters 2017 where the supply completely runs out and then the set value can then start to go up. So that is a trajectory that I'm more likely to see with Ultimate Masters. I don't think the sky is falling with those opportunities to buy in, and this last buying spree that we've had was a little bit misguided. I think people are just fear of missing out is the thing. Their fear of not being able to get those $50, $60 Lilianas. I think that Liliana, it can't stay at the $70 mark that it is right now. If we could check over here at the kind of prices I've updated, this is also giving an unclear picture. Yeah, cards like Liliana, Karn, Cavern, Snapcaster, those have all rebounded back up. But the vast majority of these here are still very, very low and haven't changed. There have been a few cards that I've had to update the prices on, but a lot of these cards have bottomed out and they've stuck at those bottom, and that's exactly what I predicted was going to happen with this set, that these high-end mythics were going to gobble up the vast majority of the set EV, and the rest of these cards will suffer as a process. Cards like the Back to Basics, the Phyrexian Towers, the Phyrexian Altars, the Gaddock Teaks, those aren't really going anywhere. At the moment, we're still seeing even uncommons go even further down. Have seen some pretty cool deals, though. At one point, I saw Revelarks at 10 cents. Oh man, I would have scooped those up all day long. And we'll be talking about those in the coming weeks, as I do think there are some good targets to get in on. There was a point you get Thesmian Sades at 35 cents. I probably should have just stuck to my keyboard and bought all these type of cards up, because I think that those are the real silver lining in these sets, these really low-end cards that we know are going to have double up and triple ups within the next couple of years, where these will go up slightly in percentile. So I do expect a good recovery from Ultimate Masters. A lot of people misjudged what my videos were about in the past about Ultimate Masters. I wasn't saying this was an awful set or had no way, no how that would go up. I was just giving a warning to the community. There was no way the box EV was going to hold that obscene $400 to $500 box EV. And second is this is a bad sign from Wizards if they're willing to just reprint everything into oblivion, because if they do it once, we know they're going to do it again. Now with Ultimate Masters, I actually don't know if the supply is over with this. There are a lot of people that still feel like there's definitely another, what I like to call, wave is a weird term, because I don't want to say there's another wave, because sometimes it means print wave. But usually how Wizards has been doing these last sets is they give the majority of the stock, we'll say 75% to the distributors in one wave, and then they give the other 25% in the next wave. And then, if they feel like they need to do a reprint, then a reprint wave happens. So we saw that exactly happen with Battle Bond. We saw that happen with the other sets, but Battle Bond's the real big one. Battle Bond came in one big wave at first, and then there was the trickle remainder of the first print run, and then they did an entire different print run. Now, there have been some rumors that Ultimate Masters is going to have another print run. Personally, I think that Wizards is crazy not to if they're continuing to sell. Like, they don't want another Iconic Masters or a Masters 25, because that's just, it's it's unprofitable for everyone at that point. They get mad distributors, they get mad local game stores because everyone has to take a loss or a very terrible profit margin. And in the world of retail, like, all of your products compete against each other, and so profit margins are everything. If you get $100 from a customer, that $100 is not created equal if you got a terrible profit margin on one and an insane profit margin on the other. So vendors and stores like to keep products that have a really good profit margin because that's what gets them the most money. And so Iconic Masters and Masters 25 were failures in the profit margin for the distributors, and distributors still selling Iconic Masters at lower than what they got it for. Just trying to make any sort of even dollar at this point on any product is a win for them. So anyway, that's kind of the hard reality of what I think they're trying to do with Ultimate Masters. Ultimate Masters could easily, if this is the end, they could easily support another 50% of the original product and still make everyone happy, make distributors, players, stores. And I think it would be a missed opportunity for Wizards. They've never passed up these opportunities in the past. We saw this with Eternal Masters. We saw this with a bunch of the other, like I said, Battle Bond. We saw this with Unstable. They did then again go back and say, okay, let's try another print wave to see if the market can handle it and see if everyone can make profits with this. So I personally think there will be another one. However, this is, like I said before, the Walmart and the Target, those 3-packs, those still have a very, very high supply. Some people think that 50% of all the supply of Ultimate Masters is in the form of those 3-packs, and 50% was in the form of boxes. So there's still a lot to go. There's still a lot to eat through. And I think that is the big difference between Iconic Masters and Masters 25 versus something like Eternal Masters. Eternal Masters was a done deal, done and out, didn't have those 3-packs and whatnot, whereas we're going to see those things start to trickle in for years to come. All right, so that's, I think, enough about Ultimate Masters. You can find this live EV in links in my past videos to find this live EV. It's recovered slightly. I think the lowest we had this at was 178. So that's a decent little recovery, going $22 back up in box non-foil box EV and whatnot. But still, it's very, very lower than the original predicted, what a lot of people thinking this was going to hold the 400, which was absolutely obscene, which led to the massive grab for Ultimate Masters to begin with. All right, so I said I'd only talk for a second of Ultimate Masters and it ended up being forever. Let's talk about some of these other market indicators. So I like to look at these particular cards like Anguish Unmakings and Cyclonic Rifts to get an overall feel of where we're at with the market. So these usually have these beautiful trajectories. This is a cyclonic trajectory since it was reprinted in Modern. Let's get the newest version of the card. And you can see that this is a beautiful trajectory up until Guilds of Ravnica. You see this with almost every card. You name it. Let's go back even over here to like Scalding Tarn. I think Scalding Tarn also follows this trend. All the way to Guilds of Ravnica. A beautiful trajectory starts to wean at M19 or Guilds of Ravnica. Almost every staple card, you name it, Pauper, Modern, Commander, all of those, unless it's been a brand new Modern deck, have followed this trend. This is starting to show me that something has happened here at M19, and I just think it's just burnout. It's just there's too much sealed product going around, with Arena being the new shiny toy, and with people that have already completed a lot of their decks that have led to everything starting to stagnate and slightly go down, at least price correct comparatively to the Rivals of Ixalan. Our Rivals of Ixalan 2 Dominaria had this really awesome growth, all the way to, I'd even say, the Core 2019. However, none of that has been able to be replicated. Now, it could be, people could say, well, you can see this similar thing right here. Maybe this is just the fall, but last fall was better than this fall for sure. And yes, we might be seeing something for January. If you start to see market activity in January, then I definitely say buy. But I don't think that there is any sort of pressure to really start to invest in Magic the Gathering product in any sort of fervor. I think that you should definitely be looking for deals. If that would be the one thing you get out of this video, that has been my approach. All of my Card Sphere offers are lowballed. I am not currently actively buying cards on TCG Player. Usually I'm always looking for, like, if there's a card I think is going to go up, scooping up copies here and there. I will still now buy on TCG Player, but I'm looking for those like insanely low rate cards that are completely different than these market prices. Now this is another big market indicator. Look at the spread between the TCG Mid and the market price. But in a lot of these also, you go over to the market price, and there also seems to be a spread between market price and low, like a very significant spread. So you can see here, nope, this one actually seems to be correct. But I was checking some of these the other day, and there's quite a bit of spread. So the market price at 416, but pages and pages at 3. So that's a 25% discount from what even the market price if you're actually looking to buy these cards. And that's just showing that more cards are actually entering into the are going up for sale than even able for people to keep up with the market price, and things are going down. I noticed a lot of these too that I was looking up, that the buy list prices haven't even caught up here on TCG Player. So that means that no one's currently has bought, because I think what they do is they do an average of the last ones sold. And so the last 10 that were buy listed were for 235. But I was actually seeing a negative buy list compared to a TCG low, which is, usually that's unheard of, because the buy list price will be at least 50% usually than the TCG low. Otherwise, they just come over here and buy them. I mean, that's not hard to do. And a lot of these staples have been showing this kind of negative buy list versus TCG low. I've seen Card Kingdom as well start to really lower the overall price of many of these cards. Like Card Kingdom will usually be way higher on these particular type of cards. Their buy list is super, super low on English when making comparatively to the past. A lot of times you would see like Card Kingdom selling card for $5.50 and buying it for $4. And across the board, a lot of these buy list prices are now way below 50% of their sell price. And that also is a huge market indicator that we have kind of a weak market on everything not called Ultimate Masters at this point. So again, I was going to spend more time surrounding this. Maybe we'll take a look at some other things here. One thing for sure certain is Standard really has cooled off. That everything across the board, if we go over here to format staples and Standard, you can definitely see that a card like History Banale is my big indicator for Standard, because even though History Banale has been a known card, these decks are still performing well. There's a Celestia deck that is starting to make a resurgence, putting up good numbers versus both Golgari and the Phoenix deck. And, of course, the History Banale is a 4 of. This is also a card I thought that people for sure would be anticipating in the next set with Orzhov especially, and Azorius. I think both of those are going to want History Banalia. I think we might see another more tempo-based Azorius deck that can utilize History Banalia, like flashing it in with Rafa, and as well as Knights. Black-White Knights seem very well positioned once we get the good fast mana out of the Ravnica Allegiance. So what we've seen is a free fall, and this actually, I think this is the card that I definitely wanted to show the discrepancy. So the buy list prices have gone way down. This has gone from its high from 25 to 20, being one of the most played cards in Standard. That's kind of crazy. And if we go over here to the market price versus the listed price, I was finding these for 11 the other day. Let's see if they're still down here on TCG low for 11. Nope. Okay, so someone's bought these out recently, because I think last night these were like 11, 12. So the market price is actually very, very similar to the TCG low price. But there were plenty of these I was finding that were, $3-4 cheaper, a whole page of them, comparatively to market price. And that's not where you want to be in a market. That's showing that things are starting to go down. Here's another, though, good example. The buy list price isn't caught up. $14 for the buy list price, but the market price, being down here to the $15.50. Yeah, that's just showing a lag between the real world price, and things will definitely adjust. And Standard as a whole is starting to lose its market dominance, and everything's just shifted. So maybe I'll come up with a more overview of this type of more evidence of this sort of thing. I should have been more prepared. I just looked down and I want to get this out on a market Monday. I'm gonna have to bust as we're getting close to Tuesday here. But overall, that's just been the whole trend. Everything trending about, I would say, 10 to 20%. So it's nothing too alarming. But I mean, this is something you'd expect to happen. You can't bring out a new shiny toy like Arena or like Ultimate Masters and not expect the value just to fall from everywhere else. Like, yes, we want those glory days back where Magic across the board. Rivals of Ixalan last year was a good example. Across the board, unless it was called Standard, it was going up. Pauper, Legacy, Commander, Reserve List, Modern, casual cards, cube cards, everything was just a people were buying and buying and buying, and the prices were just going crazy with those cards. And since M19, we've seen the exact opposite. So I'm going to keep an eye on market though. Personally, so here's the silver lining to this video. I've talked it through with a lot of people. I actually think that Magic is in a better place than it was a year ago. I think that we have overall more players. We have more vibrance. The esport announcements, the success of Magic Arena, the success of Ultimate Masters, excuse me, the success of some of the more recent Star City games and Grand Prix that seem to be very vibrant. All of that are very positive for Magic. I think we're on the cusp of maybe another player boom, like we saw with Return to Ravnica all the way through Theros, and that is, of course, where you want to be prepared for. So selling Magic cards right now is probably a big no-no. Do I think that some of them might still continue to fall in value? Absolutely, but it's not worth it to try to compete right now with what other people are selling cards for. I think you'll even make out less if you try to be very competitive. Like I said, if you try to go for a History of Benalia right now, you're looking at selling it for like $15 low, and maybe even more in the future, but all $15 aren't created equal. If we have a market price that's going up, you could easily, if it's saying it's market price 15, you could probably easily sell it at 16, 17 if you want to wait. Right now, you have to sell it at 14, even though it says it's 15, if that makes sense anyway. So Ravnica Allegiance should be a good one that will cause Standard to rebound. There will be a lot of targets that I like. Of course, I think it's going to be a lot of the usual suspects, because even if a Gruul deck or an Orzhov deck comes out the gates, we still have those staple cards like the Legion's Landings, the History of Benalias for the Orzhov. The Gruul is going to still want Merfolk Branchwalker and the Jadelight Ranger, I'm sure. So those type of things, I think, will have another rebound with Ravnica Allegiance. And then, of course, it'll be time to start preparing for the rotation. I say every year about March is when you definitely want to start inevitably be preparing for rotation. We'll also have challenger decks coming out at that point, but we'll also be looking at the state of Modern. If Ultimate Masters also has the effect I think it's going to have, then people are going to be able to afford a lot of these Modern decks they couldn't afford in the past, and then we can start scouring through so let's go over here to the metagame. You can start scouring over the decks that get the best amount of reprint. Like, so for example, Spirits, it has lost a lot of burden of the Noble Hierarchs, so maybe a bunch of these cards will go up as a consequence, because now people can get the Noble Hierarchs. So I got my place of Noble Hierarchs. Okay, I'll build Banned Spirits. Okay, that means Collected Company is going to go through the roof, or Aether Vial is going to go through the roof. We'll start looking at those type of cards, but I'd like to see a little more positive market indicators before I start pulling the trigger on those particular cards. Again, even cards like Spellqueller have been very stagnant, very, very stagnant, which isn't this card has been putting up the numbers in all of the GPs and all of the Star City Opens. You'd think that a card like Spellqueller would be going up and not stagnant at this point. Even cards like Supreme Phantom, I thought this card for sure would start to be going up, because I thought this was criminally low even around this point, and it continues to go down. And that just shows kind of a weak market for buying cards for a card that has little to no use in Standard. Usually right after it's done drafting is where you see this start to recover, and the supply start to outstretch the demand due to just Modern not continue to go down. Another card I did want to talk about too, for this one was interesting when I looked at the tally. So tally sees very little, if any, Standard play, and you can see it went up, 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 up. Well, it gets to Guilds of Ravnica, and how come a tally's falling? This is a very, very popular Commander deck, and in fact, it goes in some of the more recent Commander strategies. And you think that if you look at cards like this in the past, they never have this falling down due to Standard. They always have this continue to go up. Now, you might say, okay, people went and re-cracked Rivals of Ixalan because it had a positive EV. Yeah, that might actually explain going from 450 to 375. But I think that across the board, though, most of these cards have gone down similarly, and that just shows the weakness of the market at the moment. So again, our eyes will be glued on it. There are definitely some duh places to invest if we can get the market to rebound. Like I said, the big ones are going to be in these Modern decks that had the most of the reprints happen to them. And in fact, this was a good set for them. So Dredge, Tron, Bant Spirits. Dredge is one that I really, really like. Bloodghast is a card, for example, I think is really, really good at the moment because the deck got very affordable due to the Life in the Loams dropping in price. And it also, the Conflagrate's got basically all these cards, a bunch of these anyway, got a reprint in this particular set. We even had an Archamoeba out of standard. Very, very cheap. So the card then becomes the Bloodghast. That becomes kind of the chokehold, and that's the card that goes up the quickest. We're even seeing like Shocklands and stuff will start to go down and make this more accessible. The one big choke point, though, too, to Modern is going to be the fetch lands. They need to address the fetch land problem for Modern. It's the biggest burden for people to get into it. In fact, it's leading to a lot of decks like the Storm-based decks as entry-level decks because they require no fetch lands, and they're very, very cheap now to get into. So anyway, we'll be looking at that in the future. We'll also be rechecking back on Pauper. Pauper has crashed beyond crash. I'm thinking it's going to, there will be another resurgence of it. It happens almost yearly of when people get excited about Pauper, and hopefully we can get some more excitement going for Pauper because it's still a great format. It's something I personally love to play. Other than that, again, Commander, same thing. We'll be looking at that, and that'll be the biggest market indicators. When you see like Cyclonic Rift and Anguish Unmaking, those type of cards start going back up, it's probably start time to invest as a whole in Magic the Gathering. Again, right now, look for deals. You want to be seeing people that are trying to free up equity for Ultimate Masters and then capitalize on those particular deals. So when I saw Cyclonic Rift for $11-12, that was some pretty sweet deals. Well, I actually like to look even a bigger spread personally, but that's the name of the game. Low ball right now. Use the hype of Ultimate Masters to get good deals elsewhere on Magic. Out of sight, out of mind is what ends up happening, and people are willing to let go of cards that are more stable more stable than investing in Ultimate Masters at this point, and some of the singles from Ultimate Masters that are inevitably going to continue to trickle in from those Walmart and Target packs. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's a little bit rambling all over the place. We'll get back to more focused in the future. Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.